And away we go. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Wherever you happen to be in the world today, welcome one and all to Coffee Talk. It is time once again for Coffee Talk Live, where we will be reading through some of what's going on in the world today, taking a look at some clips from the news, and having a little bit of dialogue. Of course, you can find the live portion on YouTube Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And that is Coffee Talk and Prepper University. So at Coffee Talk Live and at Prepper University. You can also find me on X, formerly known as Twitter. And that is at Coffee Talk Chat and fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta. As we get ready to dive in and see what's going on in the world, joined today by Daniel, sitting in the chair behind me, for those of you who can see. Daniel, brother of Dusty the feline, keeping me company. And I'll go ahead and read through some of the comments to see who has joined us here today. And I do try to read as many as I can for the benefit of those who are listening and not able to see. I see Brian is here today, as well as Helter, Dragon, Cyberjack Sr., and he reminds us, thumbs up. Yes, please do, if you don't mind, if you're watching this in the live stream or even after the fact, on whichever channel or both channels, thumbs up, always appreciated. As we get ready to jump in and see what is going on in the world. Donna Beaver also chiming in there, says thumbs up, like, and share. Please do. Check out some of the other videos. Probably the only way it will get seen, as I sometimes say, because yeah, both channels are very oppressed, unfortunately. You have your freedom of speech, but fat lot of good it does you if no one can hear you. If no one can hear you. Yes, there is such a thing as shadow banning. I see that Lantern of Liberty has joined us, as well as Sven and Just In Case. And of course, we have plenty to talk about. There's always plenty to talk about because there's always something screwy going on in the world. We live in a very crazy world, unfortunately. And even more so, unfortunately, quite frankly, and I think that because of the internet, you can find out about every damn thing literally instantly. And most of it is a distraction. So it's a problem. You don't know what to look at. You don't know what to pay attention to. You don't know what to take seriously. You don't know what's honest and what's misleading, or if something does appear honest, how much of it has been garnished. And Turk is here, as well as Monkey. Thanks for joining us today. And our topic of discussion, of course, the border. One of the biggest problems in the United States today, as well as pretty much any westernized country, is border control. And as you are all well aware, Biden took a very one world approach to the border first day in office. One of the many, God knows how many, I'm not sure how many he signed actually, executive orders crippling Border Patrol from doing their jobs on the first day, and then pretended for the last three and a half years that it's out of his hands. He can't control anything. I don't have any power. You've got to sign this legislation and that legislation. We got to go through Congress, and we got to give money to the Ukraine in order to fix the border problem that I created, but I didn't create it. It's Trump's fault. You know how it works. Lantern of Liberty says 77 question mark. I'm not sure how many, but it's a record number, wasn't it, of executive orders that Biden signed on his first day in office. And he even sat there and joked about it. I'm sure many of you may remember, claiming that he doesn't even know what he's signing. I don't even know what these are. And I half wonder if he wasn't telling the truth. I see Fluke Man has joined us. And Sven says the Bible says that knowledge will increase. It does not say intellect will increase. It also says that with great knowledge comes great misery, because the more you know, the more disappointed you are in everyone, I think. And Puck is here. Glad you could make it today. And he says, who got their deployment orders for Project Ukraine? Not me. I think I'm too old to draft. but I am registered because you don't have a choice. We're not doing the draft anymore, but yeah, register anyway. Fox News article. Border Patrol memo tells agents in key sectors to release migrants from nearly all Eastern Hemisphere countries. Yeah. So are we stopping people at the border or not? An internal Border Patrol memo obtained by Fox News instructs agents in the San Diego sector to release single adults from all but 6 countries in the Eastern Hemisphere and classify them as, quote, hard or, quote, very hard to remove. The memo was sent out after President Biden's executive order banning asylum for most illegal immigrants that took effect last week. Biden announced the order on Tuesday and said he was moving past Republican obstruction and using executive authorities available to me as president to do what I can on my own to address the border. Wow. Wow. I love how he blames Republicans. He blames Trump. We all know he did this. We all know he did this. It's his signature on the executive order, correct? That started all of this mess in the first place. Details in the memo, first reported by the Washington Examiner's Anna Ghiartelli, instructs agents that all single adults from the Eastern Hemisphere are to be processed via NTAOR, which means notice to appear, released on own recognizance, except for migrants from Russia, Georgia, that's the country Georgia, of course, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Moldova, and Kyrgyzstan, which are mandatory referral countries. So if you come from north of the equator, which is what, about 90% of the world's population, you get a pass unless you're from one of those 6 countries: Russia, Georgia, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Moldova, and Kyrgyzstan, and like Krapikistan and wherever else. There are more than 100 countries in the Eastern Hemisphere, meaning that despite the Department of Homeland Security and President Biden's threats of consequences and promises to remove migrants who cross illegally under the new executive order, the overwhelming majority of the migrants in the San Diego sector are being released into the U.S. interior. A senior Border Patrol officer told Fox News, Bill Malugian, that this was localized guidance put out to the San Diego sector only because of the unique countries around the world that they encounter there. Yeah, I'm sure they're encountering that all across the southern and northern border, quite frankly. The official said that this is not U.S. Customs and Border Protection or DHS guidance for the entire border. Yeah, not yet. The CBP official said even if these migrants are released into the U.S., they still are not eligible for asylum and cannot request it. But they in here. So what if they can't request it? If they're not eligible for and can't seek asylum, why are you releasing them into the interior of the United States anyways? If they're not eligible, they shouldn't be in here. Correct? Did I miss something? So much for his cracking down on the border, allegedly, which we already knew there was going to be problems. All he did was reduce the number of that could come across. And here it is. I'll read this section. It's at the bottom paragraph. The presidential proclamation will temporarily, key phrasing, temporarily suspend the entry of migrants across the southern border once the number of average border encounters exceeds 2,500 per day over a 7-day period. It is accompanied by a rule from Department of Homeland Security and the Department of Justice that will increase standards for asylum. However, the rule comes with a series of significant exceptions. The rule does not apply to legal immigrants, unaccompanied children, or those judged to be victims of severe forms of trafficking. It also doesn't apply to those who schedule an appointment on the CBP One app. Why is there an app for this? At a port of entry where about 1,500 enter each day. There is also an exception for those who are allowed to enter based on the totality of circumstances, including consideration of significant law enforcement officer and public safety, urgent humanitarian and public health interests that warrant permitting the non-citizen to enter. And how open source is that humanitarian and public health interest? How open is that book? Can I come across and say I haven't had anything to eat for 3 days and they let me in? And I'm a special interest alien like so many others that have been allowed across the border? Unbelievable. And I see Kyle is here. Thanks for joining us today. And Lantern of Liberty said they checked 17 on the first day, 124 by the end of May in 2024. Yeah, well, I didn't know how many he had done, but I know he did a lot. I don't know if that's a record or what. I don't know who's ever done the most executive orders. I do know that his executive orders appear to have done a lot of damage. And Sven says those are Muslim majority countries. What could go wrong? And I see Mars is here. Thanks for joining us today. Yeah, Puck says ask Krakistan. Yeah, but Krakistan. But Effistan, I won't say it. I've heard them all. Dragon says as long as he's pretending to fix the problem, that is all that counts to him and his cohorts, so they can gaslight their opponents for not letting him fix it. Yeah, because it's all Republicans' fault for not signing that bill to give $67 billion to the Ukraine. Mars said so many countries that ends with Stan. What's next? Yeah, Dorkistan or Dukistan. Yeah, they call them all that overseas. And Puck says Trump's first act as president should be to reduce government employees by half. No kidding. Well, there's a lot of redundancies. In government that could be eliminated, or at least don't deserve the salaries that they're getting. They're being way overpaid to the point where you have to question what the hell's going on. And Flukeman said so presidents can send young men to die anywhere in the world to fight wars, but the border is out of his hand. Why hasn't Biden and his cronies been arrested and charged for treason? Yeah, good question. Won't happen. Won't happen. Unfortunately, he'll never be held accountable. And if anyone ever does try to hold him accountable, he's going to be too feeble to stand trial. He's going to be too feeble to sit before a congressional committee. He's going to be too feeble to answer questions. Oh, he just can't concentrate anymore. He doesn't have the cognitive resonance to answer questions. Suddenly it'll be a problem. And you'll never get him in a courtroom. You'll never get him up before Congress. He'll never answer questions. It won't happen. And Puck says special interest alien equals CIA contractor. Maybe not. And again, for those of you who aren't familiar with the term, the special interest alien refers to an alien encounter at the border by which it was determined that that individual might have ties to terrorism or might otherwise be a criminal in another country. And traditionally, those people are automatically deported. They turn them right around and get rid of them. But they've been letting them in under the new executive order signed by Biden. And and as of when we first read the article on that, I believe it was in October of last year, 74,000 of them had already been allowed across the border. So they're here. Nobody sent them back as far as I know. Lantern of Liberty jokes and says he was a genius, but the Republicans broke his heart. I know. He tried so hard. He tries so hard, especially for the black community. Just ask him go on and on about it. Indeed. It's all for the black community. He's going to help all those poor downtrodden folks. As we shift here, I wanted to follow up on this because we talked a lot about this particular subject. And of course, that is North and South Korea and the trash balloons. There was a rumor, by the way, that the balloons themselves were filled with some kind of a nerve gas. That is not true. And it wouldn't work anyways. But they did have an explosive device, but the explosive device, the function of which was only for the release of the mechanism on the bag to drop the garbage, to drop the feces and whatever else was in their dirty diapers, used toilet paper, raw sewage. It was full of all kinds of vile stuff. And Chillin' Dave has joined us. Thanks for joining us today. Glad you could make it. Well, since they did that, and my understanding is there's more than 600 balloons that came across, now South Korea is going to ramp up their efforts to be annoying too, which they warned they would, but apparently they've already started. Telegraph article, South Korea resumes playing propaganda recordings into the north. And here they are. There's the army getting the old speaker systems out. Set up that hi-fi system and crank it to 11. Where's Spinal Tap when you need them? South Korea has resumed blasting propaganda into North Korea with a Sound of Freedom broadcast. And that is the translation of the broadcast. Sound of Freedom is what they call it. That touted Samsung's achievements and reported on North Korean mental health. South Korea's National Security Council said it has started measures that may be unbearable for the North Korean regime in retaliation after Pyongyang sent hundreds of bags of rubbish over the border attached to balloons. Among these measures was the resumption of the loudspeaker broadcasts, which were suspended in 2018 when relations between the two countries warmed for a time. Yeah, even under Trump, they went to the Olympics together, didn't they? Oh, you didn't hear a peep out of North Korea when Trump was in office. Just making the point. I know a lot of people don't like him, but I really have to argue things were better. South Korean authorities did not say where the speakers were located or give full details of the content, but news says YNA said it was a psychological warfare broadcast dubbed Voice of Freedom. And here you see the sound trucks and the thing, the speakers extend up out of the trucks there. These things are insanely loud. And I'll elaborate here in a minute. One of the newest outlets reporters said that the broadcast resumed around 5 p.m. local time with the message, "Hello, fellow North Koreans. From now on, we will begin a freedom broadcast that delivers the sound of truth and hope." A number of news items then followed aimed at punching through the North's tight censorship, which includes restrictions on broadcasts from outside the country. Among these was the announcement that the South had suspended its 2018 military agreement with the North, which was intended to diffuse tension. The broadcast also lauded Samsung's position as one of the world's top exporters of smartphones. Yeah, who cares? And warned of the regime in the North's censorship. The number of North Korean residents complaining of mental pain is increasing due to the sudden strengthening of crackdowns and censorship on the viewing and distribution of external videos. The resumption of the broadcast came after the South warned its northern foe to stop the rubbish balloons, which began in May. On Saturday, about 330 were launched, with about 80 of them landing south of the border, the South Korea military said. And again, I heard it was more like around 600 that came across. Among the items contained in the bags were animal feces, toilet paper, and other rubbish. Yeah, we know that. It doesn't explain too much about what it is these speakers do, or what it is that these, you see the speaker truck here, and I'll leave that image up for a moment, and I'll catch up with some comments, and then I'll tell you how this works. Flukeman says he remembers a few years back in 2017, because Kazakhstan president wanted to change the country's name because some people can mistake and stand a name for terrorist nations. Yeah, I can understand that. Chris said, can we get the USA version of the speakers for the Democratic Convention? That would be nice. And like I said, I'll explain how this works in a minute. Chillin says, as for Trump, I'm not looking for new friends, just a good president again. And Brian said, who the hell is afraid of us now with Kamala Harris and Joe Biden? Nobody, apparently. Nobody. Helter says it sounds almost like a noise war between neighboring frat houses. One side covers the whole yard in their garbage, so the other side gets a bunch of speakers so they can blast loud, annoying music. And then Dragon said, what next? Something involving eggs, toilet paper, 1 million unpaid for pizzas, water balloons. Yeah, and Lantern of Liberty wants Nickelback. All right. Those speakers are like ear-shatteringly loud. You can't, when they set those trucks up, they can't be anywhere near them. It's too much for a human to bear. But you are broadcasting sound across the DMZ. And Monkey says, aren't those speakers meant for riot protest controlling by hitting high decibels? That is one of the functions of some of those speakers. These are louder. These are louder. I know they're upwards, up and over 210, 10 decibels. But the way that it works is they will intermittently broadcast 2 to 6 hour messages, anywhere from 2 to 6 hour long messages, but at random times. So it's not the same time every day or every night. It might be at 3 o'clock in the morning one day, and it might be at 5 in the afternoon the next, and then again at 11 at night. It's just totally random so that you can't be prepared for it. It just comes on. They can be heard. The South Korean military claims, and keep in mind, these countries aren't that big, and they're closer to the DMZ than you might think, populated areas, that on a basic day with ambient noise in the background, it can be heard 7 or 8 miles, which is close enough to reach towns and villages and cities in North Korea. But then on the evening, when the ambient noise is low, it can be heard over 15 miles away from the trucks. Clearly heard. Let me emphasize, not like you think you hear something in the background. You can clearly hear this. Enough to keep you up at night. But yeah, that's the idea. And the randomness of it is what's really going to annoy the hell out of people. But again, in 2018, South Korea said, okay, we'll knock it off. We're going to stop doing this because it's something they used to do. And now the two countries are having pissing matches again. So here we are, turning the speakers back on. So you violated your pact, your agreement in our eyes by sending balloons full of excrement. So now we're going to violate our agreement by turning on the speakers again. Well, at least they're not doing tit for tat and also sending excrement across the border, because that would be too childish. But this is bad enough. This is bad enough. Brian says, well, Korea was one country before being divided into North and South Korea after World War II. Yeah, well, they just can't get along. Well, the government can't get along. Let's put it that way. But make no mistake that their people are indoctrinated. When you grow up in that type of an environment, you have a very deep-rooted sense of patriotism, even if it's misguided, even if you don't half believe it yourself. You'll still go along with it, just out of habit. And Tuck says, I grew up with a bedroom window facing the Florida Turnpike. I may be able to sleep through it. Perhaps. Oh, and in those broadcasts is not just propaganda news, but also K-pop music, dialogue from Korean soap operas, all kinds of stuff. Things that it's illegal for them to listen to in North Korea, basically. Things that it's illegal for them to listen to. But that's what's going on. That's what's going on in North and South Korea. It's really pathetic. But I guess that's the best they can do, short of actually going to war and sucking the whole rest of the world in with it. Because if those two countries did go to war, which North Korea is not actually going to do anything without China's permission anyway, they won't. They're not going to do it without China's permission. But they have China to back them up. And then that means that South Korea has the United States, Great Britain, whoever to back them up. You want to talk about World War III. There you go. As we shift gears here, we're going to jump from South Korea to California. Going back to California. They're putting flowers in their hair. United Liberty article talking about, you guessed it, more corruption. Corruption in California California government? Are you shocked? Are you disappointed? Or is this exactly what you expected? I'm sure this is what you expected. California community colleges lost or lose millions after 900,000 fraudulent financial aid applications were processed. So nearly a million fraudulent applications processed in California schools or community colleges. Here we go. In a shocking revelation, California's community college system has been grappling with a massive financial aid fraud problem that has cost the state millions of dollars. I'm sure it's more than that if you're talking about that many applications. According to Kim Rich, a criminal justice professor at Pierce College, who was a guest in a recent video by California Insider Opinion, an estimated 900,000 fraudulent financial aid applications have been processed, leading to a significant loss of taxpayer money and resources meant for genuine students. You know, the students who want to be indoctrinated the old-fashioned way. The C virus pandemic and the subsequent shift to remote learning, created an ideal environment for fraudsters to exploit the financial aid system. Criminals used bots to enroll in online classes and siphon off financial aid funds. Mrs. Rich highlights that the scale of this fraud is staggering, potentially involving hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars. Said California's community college system, comprising 116 institutions, uses a centralized application system known as CCC or Triple C Apply. While designed for convenience, the system has inadvertently become a conduit for fraud. Once fraudulent applications are accepted, they infiltrate individual college systems, making it challenging to identify and remove them. Different colleges using various systems only complicates the problem. A major issue compounding the problem is the lack of accountability among colleges. Funding is tied to enrollment numbers, giving institutions little incentive to root out fraudulent students. This perverse incentive structure means colleges may turn a blind eye to fake enrollments to secure more funding, distorting enrollment data and depriving genuine students of financial aid and access to classes. One more here, and I'll get to the point. The consequences of this fraud extend beyond financial losses. Faculty members are burdened with the task of distinguishing between real and fake students, diverting their attention from teaching. Moreover, this fraud diminishes the integrity of the educational system, undermining the mission of community colleges to provide accessible education to the community. Now, I kind of call BS on a lot of this, okay? I think the colleges knew what was going on. I wouldn't be surprised to find out if the colleges themselves are linked to this fraud. Anyone here ever do a student loan? It's not that easy. It's actually kind of a pain in the ass. And I can't imagine that it's any easier for someone to do it remotely. There is accountability. They do check up on you. They do verify who you are. So it's not like I'll just fill out an application and I'll get this. Who's getting what? And these colleges didn't notice 900,000 applications across 116 institutions. The colleges didn't notice that their numbers in their online courses doubled or even tripled overnight. I got to wonder. And Puck says 900,000, how big is the school? Well, it's 116 schools in total. And Turk says FedGov, CA.gov has to be allowing that kind of fraud to occur. No other explanation for this. No. And you should have been able to root it out. They didn't notice that their numbers doubled, tripled almost overnight, like in one season. They didn't notice that these new students that were enrolled weren't taking the classes. I mean, you didn't notice this? Nobody saw that, right? And we're talking about hundreds of millions or even billions of taxpayer dollars lost, and the colleges, oh, we don't know what happened. We don't know what happened. I bet you don't. I bet you don't know what happened. How convenient. How freaking convenient. And Fluke Man says, million, that is nothing for institutions, has got to be more than that. Well, it's almost a million applications, but it's hundreds of millions or billions of dollars. It says, has got to be more than that, obviously a cover up for the bigger picture. They let this out to the public to make it look like they're the good guys. But the only way I could see that kind of fraud going on that scale across 116 community colleges in the same state is if somehow they're in on it. If some arrangement had been made, it makes me think. It makes me think of McDonald's, and I'll read one more and I'll explain. Turk says, I bet they'd notice if applications dropped by 10%, and then they'd form 5 committees to study the matter. Yeah, and they'd borrow money to do it. But you all remember McDonald's, and I've talked about it before, and their Monopoly game they used to do. They did it for years. Oh, you could win $1 million. You could win a new car. You could win, whatever bullshit. And you peel the tabs off your soda cup and your French fries, and you try to fill up your Monopoly board. And they did this for years and years, more than a decade. They did this, and it turns out that that the security director who was in charge of the integrity for that system was stealing, and he had plants in different states that these hand-picked plants were the ones that were winning the prizes and splitting it with him. So no one legitimate won any of the grand prizes from the McDonald's Monopoly game sweepstakes the entire time it was running, basically. And McDonald's was so embarrassed by it, they shut the whole thing down. I don't know that they ever got back to it, but they shut the whole thing down and never really picked it back up, to my knowledge. I don't know. Does anybody know if they ever started doing the game again? But yeah, these individuals that he was working with, they were all part of it. And that's what it makes me think of. Did someone go to each of these college and talk to somebody in HR and say, hey, I got a scam going. You want to make a few bucks? So they're all, at least one plant in HR in each of these colleges is in on it. That's my tinfoil hat moment for the day. Something to think about. Chillin says they don't have to pay it back even if it was legit. And Puck thinks it's money laundering. And Turk says he won free food from the Monopoly game, a hash brown here and there. Yeah, that's what everybody got. But if you're talking about like the month-long cruise in the Caribbean, or the SUV, or the yacht, or the $1 million top prize, or whatever, those prizes were all stolen. Nobody legitimate won them, I should say. No one legitimate won them. They were won by his plants, because ultimately the computer, same argument I have with scratch tickets. The computer knows where those winning tickets are actually going to. Just like even though the tickets are supposedly randomly distributed, the computer that prints those lottery tickets, it knows where those winners are, technically. But we're supposed to trust that the people at the lottery have no access to that information, that it's hidden in the algorithm. And how do I know that? How do I know that that's hidden and safe? Is it secret? Is it safe? Only Gandalf can tell you. But that's kind of my point, and that's what it makes me think of. That's my conspiracy theory moment of the day. And as I have pointed out, before, I really honestly believe that the lawmakers in California. Hey, Daniel. Come here, buddy. That the lawmakers in California are deliberately sabotaging the state. And this could be part of it. There's Daniel, everybody, for those of you who can see. Got down out of his chair to say hello. Hi, buddy. Very, very, very friendly cat. This is one of the strays. Him and his sister Dusty found as kittens abandoned. They were under a bush and ran out to us while we were on a walking trail. The two of them. Hi, buddy. And feral kittens won't come near a person. They run away because they're terrified. These two ran up to us, climbing up our clothing. They're used to people. They were used to people, so they were looking for help. And man, they were dehydrated. Wasn't that right? But they're okay now. Daniel and Dusty. That's Daniel. He's a very, very sweet animal. Very friendly. Go ahead, buddy. There we go. And Stuart is here. Thanks for joining us, Stuart. And Turk says he knows someone who won a Super Bowl trip from a soda cap game and sold it for $200. Really? They're worth more than that now. They're worth more than that. And Chillin thinks I have a heart of gold. Well, I appreciate it. I'm glad somebody does. My wife thinks so. My wife thinks so. But yeah, that sounds to me every bit of a scam. Like that was set up. That was arranged. That was arranged. So here we are, jumping into more corruption, this time from Atlanta. This is a Daily Mail article. Atlanta prosecutor was jailed for C virus fraud. And you all know what I mean by C virus. I say it that way on purpose because of the algorithm. Made donations to the Trump DA. So the ex-assistant city attorney of Atlanta, who was jailed for defrauding the federal government out of $15 million in C virus relief loans, also made donations to the local district attorney. Oh, that's nice. Birds of a feather. Shalitha Robertson, aged 62, donated $1,000. That's not a lot. To Fannie Willis's Democratic primary election campaign around the time she got the massive payouts obtained after declaring inflated businesses to the Paycheck Protection Program, according to filings. A few years later, the Georgia jurist would charge former President Donald Trump with racketeering following a 13-count indictment accusing him of trying to illegally overturn the 2020 election. Trump is one of 19 indicted in the sprawling case, which was halted Wednesday as a result of Robinson's arrest. Also, a life advice podcaster. Really? Robinson used the funds meant for small businesses to buy a 10-carat diamond ring, a Rolls Royce, and a motorcycle, while Trump 77 continues to deny any wrongdoing. Why even mention him? Why even mention him if that's the case? This is far more interesting than Trump's case. So this woman, I'm going to pull up her image. This is Shalitha Robinson. Can you see her? 62. She doesn't look bad for 62. Usually I end up making fun of these people. She's a little heavy, but she doesn't look bad for 62. I'll grant her that. Stole $15 million in tax money, stole it, misappropriated it with fake loans to herself, and bought a 10-carat diamond ring. And understand, they don't mean a cluster, okay? She didn't go to Jared's. Chillin says 2 million is more than enough. Yeah, it is. It is. And Imagine My Surprise is here. He says they're here and they put the link up on Twitter. Thank you, Imagine. I appreciate it. I also see Urban Angst is here. I'm just catching up a little bit. And just in case, loved seeing the kitty. Yeah, he's a sweetheart. Most of them are. If once you show them that they're loved, you show them that you care. I think most of them are. There's a few that have been hurt real bad or that are very feral. You can never quite reach them, but most of them figure out. Fluke Man says, anyone remember a Pepsi ad about if you collect enough tops or something, you get a free Real Harrier flight fighter jet, didn't it go to court? Yeah, it did, because they said they were only implying that, but they had no intention. Just in Case wants to know if she's going to pay it back. I don't know. Let me see if I can catch this up. Robinson, who has remained on bond since pleading not guilty to the 5 charges of fraud in December of 2022, claimed she needed the cash to support 4 businesses that she owned. So she's still on bail and waiting for trial, apparently. In reality, she was falsely inflating numbers and monthly payrolls with false supporting tax documentation. The U.S. Attorney Ryan K. Buchanan decried Robinson for her actions, citing her pedigree as a former police officer and attorney for the city of Atlanta. So is she? So she is in jail. I skipped over something by accident. Motivated by greed, Robinson deceptively obtained funds that were designated to provide emergency financial relief to struggling small businesses. Today, the defendant in the case was held accountable. Okay, so this happened yesterday, for fraudulently obtaining millions of dollars through the Paycheck Protection Program and using those stolen funds to enrich herself while small businesses were struggling. So what's her punishment? It says, I'm trying to catch this up. Submitted fraudulent applications on behalf of 4 businesses Robinson actually owned, resulting in $7,020,779 in funds deposited into her personal bank account. She used the proceeds for her personal benefit, purchases of luxury items like 10-carat diamond ring, and transferring funds to family members. Rolls-Royce and other items were bought as well, and officials traced 3 wire transfers made in the month of May. They amounted to more than $5 million. Yeah, it really doesn't tell you. I want to know what they're going to do to her. And I'm looking here. I want to know what a 10-carat diamond ring would go for. How much do you think a 10-carat diamond ring sells for, ladies and gentlemen? Keeping in mind also there's different grades of diamonds. That diamonds have varying degrees of values. So it goes from being almost black if you start at the very lowest level. It starts at going at almost black, then brown, then yellow, then clear, and then blue. And blue would be the highest possible value. I do actually know a little something about how that works. So you count the color, and then you count the flaws in a natural diamond to assess a value. And according to this, I'm looking it up really quickly here. It says GIA certified 10-carat diamond ranges. The lowest possible scale, so a black diamond, would run you $167,200. But a clear to blue diamond would be in excess of $2.25 million. And I'm going to assume she at least got a clear one. So you're talking about a $2 million ring. A $2 million ring. Wow. Brian says there's something wrong with people who don't like cats. I think there's something wrong with people who don't like animals, period. It doesn't have to be cats. I like all animals. I just end up with more cats than anything for some reason. And Helter says there's so many greedy politicians and a lot of them are being caught these days. They need to be. And Dragon says she seems to think that the government wasn't going to pay attention to her illegal activities and what she was buying with the money. If Luke Man says 62, how much of the money she stole was spent on surgeries, Botox, and makeup? Oh, I could just imagine. And Turk says a basic 14-karat gold woman's wedding band is $200 and up. Yeah. But I just wanted to look that up real quick and explain diamond grading really quick. That's something you can look up for yourself. Natural diamonds, you have to count. You start with the color, which there are grades between each color also. like 3 to 5. What was it? 3 to 5 grades, if I remember correctly. Black, brown, yellow, clear, and blue. There's also pink, but that's pretty rare. I'm assuming hers is going to be clear to blue if she's spending this kind of money. I wonder how much a Rolls Royce goes for these days. What do you think a Rolls Royce goes for? I'm assuming it's at least a fairly modern one. How much is a Rolls Royce? What's that going to run you? Upwards of $1 million for a modern one. $1 million on a car. Can you imagine? I don't need $1 million car. What the hell? Yeah, you do stuff like that. That's purely for a status symbol. Honestly, it's purely status symbol. Imagine says, I see she talks about her faith in God. Fake religion is the fallback position of many criminals. Yeah, I know. That's the sad part too. You talk about God, 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 but that's part of the facade because you're clearly not doing things that are biblical. You misappropriated all that money, and then you spend it on lavish luxuries that even with that kind of money, you couldn't afford to sustain, ultimately. And Brian says, I can't stand status symbols. It's not, it's unnecessary. It's unnecessary. You're just going to show off. And that's what people like this do. You see it a lot with celebrities, actors, rappers, athletes. They spend a lot of money to look like they have money until they have none. They burn themselves out. They burn themselves out, and then they have nothing. And then, when you reach that point, all you can do is try to hustle it up. And she overdid it. She overdid it. And Turk says they could spend $150 on a vehicle because they want a short bed dump truck. I have no use for luxury or sports cars. $150 or $150,000 or $15,000. I'll take a used car. Good used car. I'm happy. Hell, I don't have one now. My wife and I, well, technically, my wife and I share a vehicle. We don't have two vehicles right now. And Turk says $150,000. Okay, that makes more sense. Yeah, I mean, if you won the lottery, $150,000. Actually, I don't know if I would spend that much. But he's talking about a dump truck, so that's a whole different animal right there. Following up on a previous article here, and I see WCM chiming in. He says new cars are garbage. They're also full of a lot of very invasive electronics that monitor everything that you do and every move you make. And I've also noticed that the more electronics are involved in things and you get away from solid state technology, the more they screw up and break down. And Broken Gardening says they always wonder how long it's been since I've seen one of your lives. Apparently, I can gauge it based on how long your beard is. Yeah, I see. My wife wants it to keep going, so yeah, that's why I'm allowing it to continue to grow out. Is this the right? Yes, it is. This is the right page. This is OK Robots homepage. Now, I've been showing robots a lot recently. I showed one last week that's replacing Amazon warehouse workers, the people that move around bins. And WCM says electronic trash, take mechanical any day. Yeah, no kidding. This is another one on robots, and this is called the OK Robot, one word. All right. And I don't know how well you can see this image. I don't know how well you can see this image here. Hold on, because it's acting funny. This is the robot, this thing that looks like a lamp. For those of you who can see, let me see if I can find another image there. No, that's just a video clip. I can play this video clip if you want to see it. I'll run the video clip really quickly here. You see it moving around? For those of you who are watching, it looks like one of those vacuums, but it's got an arm. This is replacing some hotel room cleanup. Obviously, it can't, I don't think it can make a bed, but it can dispose of trash, clean the floor, remove debris, take away the garbage. A lot of the basic things that the maid does when they come into your hotel room. And it does it autonomously. So there goes another job, folks. There you go. Wait for it. And again, like I had pointed out previously, it's slow. Just like those Amazon robots. They're slow. But many of these employers would rather have a slow-ass robot than deal with employee problems. And I'll say it again. You know, I should probably do a whole separate video on this. I know a lot of people think it's all about the salary. Oh, they don't want to pay that salary. That's really not the problem. It's not just the hourly wages that's the problem. The hourly wages, the vacation pay, the sick pay, that's just the tip of the iceberg. You've got training. You've got if people call in sick and they're not, people who quit and don't say anything, people who come in late, people who leave early, people who shirk their duties, people who steal, people who sabotage the company, people who sabotage other employees, people who bicker, people who screw around at work, flirting, having sex on the job. They used to have a lot of trouble with that when I was at Frito-Lay. Not a lot, but it would happen. A couple of people would be caught somewhere having sex and they'd get disciplined. But you don't have to worry about any of that. That's all a lot of liability. You don't have to worry about someone injuring themselves and suing the company or having the company paying for medical expenses or insurance claims. This eliminates a lot. So yeah, take your time, robot. Go as slow as you want. I don't care how much that thing costs. It's cheaper than dealing with a person. And just in case, check out the new AI medical exam rooms. These things are replacing people. These companies want to replace employees. They want to get rid of you because you're too much of a problem. Maybe not you specifically who may be listening today, but most of these jobs anywhere that you had a job where you have employees that are a problem. And I've been there. Oh man, Family Dollar is a great example. I think 19 out of 20 applicants couldn't pass the drug test at Family Dollar because we used to have to administer them ourselves. They would send us cases of cups for people to pee in. They almost never passed. And that was back when it was kind of expensive to do that. And then like I said, people would show up late. They'd slip out early. They wouldn't do the job. They steal. I've had so many problems with employees like that. And work ethics have gotten so much worse since then. So much worse. No, Puck, I don't think the discipline involved a whip. I don't know what the disciplinary measures were because I never got into that trouble. And Fluke Man says the robots being slow is to be expected. Sometimes times we're full of energy and enthusiastic. Other times we're fed up, tired, and bored. Yeah. It's okay that they're slow. And WCM says beef's getting ready to skyrocket. Their next scam is here. Well, they've already tried it with poultry a couple of times. But, again, one of the main arguments I always get is that, well, that's not skilled labor. So who gives a shit? That's not skilled labor. They're not replacing skilled labor jobs, right? That's what you think. I'm going to open up another one here for you. You've all seen, some of you have seen, some months ago, I showed a video clip of a robot that they designed to build drywall. It puts up drywall, and then another one And it walks. This is a walking robot that picks up drywall, pins it to the wall, and perfectly aligns it and installs it. It's slow, but very accurate. And they also have one that paints the walls, interior or exterior. Perfect application of just a regular coat of paint. Okay. Here's another one for you. This thing lays brick. There goes another skilled labor job. You saw the little truck. There's one robot that loads the truck. The truck is also a robot. It drives out to this thing that spreads out the concrete mix and lays the brick. Pinpoint was an ad. Hold on a second while I get rid of the ad so you can watch the rest of that. It won't let me skip it. There we go. Now it's back on. Sorry about that. I didn't know it did that. Pinpoint accuracy bricklaying. And in many places, that's a union job. Oh, well. You lost that, folks. You lost that one, too. I can see this going up all over. And Broken Gardening says, can I get one to clean my house? Not a fan of everything being AI and robotic, but there are some benefits to certain situations. Guess you can choose once the bot is out of the box, pretty much, because I can see that. There are examples. Like, let's say you've got someone who's infirm. You've got an elderly dementia patient. You have someone who is a paraplegic or a quadriplegic or is mentally ill, and you put a house cleaning robot in their home. That's a good idea. That's fair. I don't have a problem with that. But replacing most other jobs, and it's coming. I mean, you see this thing. Again, it's slow, but it's not going to make one mistake. It's not going to make one damn mistake. And in the long run, cheaper than dealing with a person. It'll never go on strike. The union won't fight for more money. Our bricklayers aren't making enough. We're going on strike. Go your ass on strike. We'll buy robots. Remember, I was replaced by a robot at Frito-Lay. Twice. Robots replaced us in box drop. And then I finally lost out when they replaced the packers, the packing stations with robots. That was what really did it. That's what really killed the jobs. Is when because I was a low man. I wasn't there long enough for the union to protect me because they have a bumping policy. The union. And they were like, all right, you know what? Sorry, buddy, but we don't need you anymore. Or we can't keep you because someone else bumped you for your job because the union allows that. They've been here longer. They lost 96 employees when those went online. 96 employees because it was 31 packing stations were replaced. 31 packing stations. And it ran 24 hours a day, so that's 3 shifts. Plus, they had already lost a dozen. No, how many? It was a dozen box dropping cover areas, I think, 11 or 12 for 3 shifts. So they had already lost more than 30 people up in box drop. And so there was that. But even though I was a skilled processor, it didn't matter. It didn't matter. I got bumped by the union. But there you are. And Turk says it's slow, but I bet it will work 24/7, which greatly reduces completion time. That's true. And that's very important in commercial and industrial building. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. It doesn't, or if there's 2 of them, when its battery starts to run down, they'll just switch out, which I've seen drones do. They will switch each other out. Those security drones do that you see in the shopping malls. But anyway, we are at the top of the hour, so I'll go ahead and start signing out. Again, you are listening to and or watching Coffee Talk. And if you're listening on an app or you're listening on Fistful of Radio and you want to join the live portion, you can find it Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Coffee Talk and Prepper University. That's at Coffee Talk Live and at Prepper University on YouTube. You can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Coffee Talk Chat. So I'll say thank you to everyone who joined us here today. Hope you got something out of the conversation. And we will